Are you coming to me? Hello. Your mother. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Way back there? Man in hat far away? You tell me. It'll be fine. I'll be able to, if I put it here, I can see, I think. Yeah? Stephen, about 5 weeks ago, asked me if I would read here, and I was certainly. And then I thought, what should I read? And I didn't want to read anything, I wanted to write something. So it's not the first time that he's gotten me to write something. I've written a fair number of pieces prompted by his work or his remarks or his history, even his, how this is an architect, world famous and very powerful and very friendly and very close, who grows up reading Chinese poetry and translation. And I keep thinking about that as I think about him. Anyway, so I wanted to write something to this occasion rather than reading a medley of my neglected hits. But I have one of those coming up later. Thanks to Marie. So what I really wanted to say to Stephen, what I really want to say is about poetry always, is about architecture, I mean music. Yes. How can I tell them apart? I'll try. How they use us to make us become ourselves. What I really wanted to say is about poiesis. The Greek verb poiein means to make. So anybody who makes anything has to be a poet. So when we were evicted by spirit from the caves, we moved into houses, structures built by the first poets, the architects. Isn't the house the first thing we really made? So poetry and music make time pass, and architecture makes space pass into meaningful form. No, I mean architecture makes music stand still. That's more like it. Here time turns into space. Impossible. Space and place, can they be the same? Place happens to space. Is architecture in a place, or does it make the place itself happen to space? The way music happens to time. So there is usually a street and sometimes a fountain or a thing that moves up and glistens while the eye reaches out and out. And there's a girl walking by and another eating lunch on a bench, because a place is a plaza. But what I really want to say is that the poem stretches on and on like an avenue of mysterious buildings. Who on earth lives in all those houses, apartments, single rooms? Who climbs down the stairs or stumbles at midnight? Who opens the brass letterboxes? My God, who are all these people eating their lunch in the middle of the poem and looking at each other and wondering what it all means? And then they come to the end of a line and decide, well, enough of this, it's time to go home. Home to their room, home to their own place. What I really wanted to say was that the word room really means space, like German Lebensraum, space to live in. Is there room for living in this poem you're writing, O poet, O composer? Are you leaving space in your music for someone to live in, really and truly? Be alive inside your music? Not just some background noise, not just some sad background life while you drone on. I know it's not polite to ask, but we sort of know what architecture does. Rough and ready, we inhabit it, and when we're lucky, it changes us, guides our footsteps in the way we feel about doing whatever it is that we're doing that brings us there. Swinking or swiving, a building holds all. So what I really wanted to say was that these arts do something to time as it goes by, not just make it pass, as Beckett had his sad losers say, that time will pass by itself, all right. Time knows how to do that. Well, that is all time knows. And do we know more? More than what music tells us as it flows past? We sit in the plaza on a marble bench and read poems to one another, whispering or waving our arms, and why not? Somebody has to make these things move, make the shadows dance in and out of the shadows of great buildings. But does time ever really pass? Isn't time just a superstition, a flaw in our attention to the permanent? And if time passes, can we learn how to stop it and make it pool out around us so that we stand or sit in the shallow water of moveless time? A static stream? Or time might be a fountain, springing up and falling back, a salmon leap of time out into space, into room, so that when we see a building, we know that time is safe here, an artist's hour hammered into place, and we can be, just be, as he turned time into space. What I really wanted to say was there and back again, the swell of music held in the mouth of the poem, spoken to the girl eating her lunch in the great nested plazas of so many levels Steven Holl built in China, a city in a city, a poem someone is reciting, annoying the poor girl eating her lunch. My God, how can I look at that plaza and not start writing a poem with musics and levels and fountains and food? It's hard work to eat, chewing and swallowing all the inward mysteries thereafter. Hard work, the poem and the song. Hegel infamously remarked a building is a frozen song. Well, yes, but everything is. What I really wanted to say was that everything approximates music, but a building is exact, demands space, move its hips and shoulders this way, not that way. Or is architecture also a chanceful music, turning space into space, so that we can get lost for a long time in a long song, corridors and pentagons and Moorish geometries, the way John Cage's 433 turns time into time, our dear Christless fundamentalist, our sweet, raw, redneck Pythagoras, daring to turn common time into pure time, time transmuted by attention. He'll never let us be sure if he was the great alchemist or the Wizard of Oz, but the time changed and stays changed. He moved on to the next town and left us with an empty room full of pure time. We shake our heads and say, next time we'll do better. We'll be ready for him and dance to his tune. But what does next time mean? Can there be another time after this time? That's where poetry comes in. And if quoting myself, I could say again, time transmuted by attention, a measured, noticed time, is as much music as Bieber's, the glorious whine of whose archaic strings won't leave me alone for a second. She looks up from her paper plate and hears the time singing round her ears, spoken by the shapes and shades of great buildings. And now she knows, and now she's only now. Can a poem, though, such as I'm trying to make, or bend your way now, can a man outlast time? Can it get where it's going before I get there? When I was a child, the greatest thrill was riding on the escalator, Macy's, Gimbals, Wanamaker's, floor to floor and always rising and no one to stop even a child from going up, and watching people on the way down, watching bags, neat brown packages, content, descending into ordinary space while I rose up, finally reaching the dim, cool floor where furs were sold. And I turned back from the fear of dead animals. What could it mean to live in a world where animals die and their skins rest on lovely women of a certain age? That's why we hurried down again to the ordinary floors, the street, the paper plates littering the gutter. She's closed her book now and gone back to work. The half-eaten sandwich, the poem read halfway through and never finished. But something was always going up, even if we didn't have the wit or will to endure its beauty. like James Tenney's Electronic for Anne Rising, where the sound goes up and never stops that climb, but is always present. Or Joan Towler's wonderful Platinum Spirals, violin conquering time by rising always in one place. Or when the thunder walks through the valley and everybody and everything knows itself suddenly walked into by that sound, invaded, persuaded, frightened, spared. What I really wanted to say was that I'm tired of poetry being a blueprint and not a house. I'm tired of music being something that comes and goes. I want the word to be a house and the tune to be something you climb in and travel. But how can I say that? What I really wanted to say is, how can words make you hear? How can words make a poem be something made? Can it make a place you can actually walk around in, stretch out in, reach a wall you can lean against, warm in sunlight, and close your eyes? What I really wanted to say is that poetry wants to close your eyes, so you open them suddenly in a new space, the way doors and windows do. Oh, these architects, these poets, who can build an opening wherever they choose, can open space and let us in. But can I break open even a single word to make you see? Thank you for bringing me I was asked by Marie, if Marie is here, maybe she fled, to read a poem from a long time ago. I was going to say that in the old days, in the Roman days, the poet Horace, whose work was not particularly important to me except as a body of work, used to make the distinction between sermo and oda, the ode which is sung, or the Carmen, which said the song, but he also spoke of the sermo, a poem that was a sermo, a conversation. We get the boring, horrible, right, Ashley, word sermon from that word sermo. But it initiated a spate of composition poems that have lasted all through the centuries. Since then, Coleridge, most notably, Ashbery in our own day. He's from Rochester, he's not a Hudson Valley guy. But he's a marvelous poet and the best we have. I hate to say it, but he's so good. But he writes sermones. And this last thing I read was in the sermo tradition, just talking. Marie asked me if I would read a poem from a long time ago that is not irrelevant, I guess. It's not even visible anymore. I'm very dependent. It's called looking. Once when I read the funnies, I took my little magnifying glass and looked too close. Forms became colors, and colors were just arrays of dots. And between the dots, I saw the rough, bleak, storyless legend of the pulp newspaper, empty as the winter moon, and I dreaded it. I had looked right through when I wanted a universe that sustains looker and looking, and the scene forever, detail after detail never ending. And all I had found was between. But between had its own song, and it is in the space between. It is just as empty as it seems, but this blankness is your mother. Thank you.